Hi everyone, Happy New Year to you all, and welcome to the first review of 2024, which is our 6-month review of the True Catalyst PX3 equipment. Time has absolutely flown with this equipment. We got it in June of last year. We've had a decent amount of time to test it on the ice, both in practice sessions and private test sessions as well. So I've got a good idea now to be able to tell you the things that I really like about it, and things that perhaps weren't for me, and just to give you a general overview of how it performs. So we'll start with the leg pad. As I mentioned in the first review of it, True have a new composite thigh rise on the PX3s, which is 30% stiffer in the core than the previous L12.2s, and also the 20.2s as well. And I mentioned in the first video about just how stiff that actually was, and it's still just as stiff now as it was when it came out of the box 6 months ago, which is good in some ways. But I think I've found the first pad that is too stiff for me. And mainly because of the shape of the core. If we had a pre-curved core in this leg pad, it would be absolutely perfect, and I don't think I'd have any problems with the stiffness of it. But because it's quite a straight thigh rise, there's no real curve to it, and because it's so stiff you can't bend the curve into it, it's actually just too straight and too stiff for how I play. When you drop into butterfly, a pre-curved pad, you'll have a nice sort of round sort of closure to the butterfly. With these pads, just with the way that they are, unless you've got a crazy wide butterfly, which I don't with my surgically repaired hips, it's much more of like a triangle at the top, and it leaves a bit of an opening. And I found that more often than I'd like, I was getting hit like on the knee stack with the pad there. So I believe, and this is just a rumor, that True are going to introduce a pre-curved option to the new hazardous pads in 2024, which, if they do, I'll be the first in line to sign up for that, because I think that'll fix everything that I didn't quite like about these leg pads. But yeah, so it's held up great. It's still just as stiff as it was when they first came from the factory. As I mentioned in the first video, we have a 40% thinner thigh rise as well, which is fantastic. It stops the pads from sort of clashing with each other when you're dropping into butterfly, and just with how sort of thin that is at the top, the seal and the stability that gives on the ice when in butterfly is absolutely fantastic. So if we had all of those features with a pre-curved core, these would be absolutely perfect, but not quite for me. They're just a bit too straight, and they force a bit of a triangle style sort of 5-hole closure, which I'm not a massive fan of. The next new feature was the slightly more rigid knee block, which is great. It did work very, very well, especially compared to the L20.2s, which I felt was a real letdown on that particular pad, was how sort of floppy the knee block area was. So the more sort of stable and stiffer knee block is a great addition, and I've really noticed that on the ice as an improvement from the L20.2s. As we move down to the strapping system, the strapping was no different to the previous Trues that I tried. It took a while to sort of dial them into what was comfortable for me, but with how adjustable these Velcro tabs are, you can adjust them like a millimeter at a time if you really need to. So it didn't take me long to find a strapping setup that suited me perfectly. So yeah, overall they're pretty good, the leg pads. A couple of improvements at the top to the curvature of the core, and I think they'd be a lot better. I don't know what it was about the sliding surface, because normally with a weave sliding surface I have no problem sliding, but with these pads I found as soon as the ice got a little bit cut up, they didn't slide very well. Don't know why, because the material doesn't feel any better. The surface area doesn't seem much bigger than other pads, but for whatever reason these slid really, really well on good ice. But as soon as it got a bit cut up, as quite often with UK rinks, we deal with bad ice more often than we deal with good ice. They just didn't slide as well as I'd have hoped. So that's the only other negative I have about the leg pads there. But overall, 7.5 out of 10. If I'm being honest with them, they're good. Just a few things that I'd like to tweak if I was to magically redesign these from the ground up. There'd be a few little things that I would change to make them absolutely perfect to my needs. A lot more positive as we move on to the gloves. If we go on to the blocker, I won't spend too long on these because they haven't changed at all from the L20.2s and probably the 12.2s and the ones beyond that. True build amazing gloves. I should say Levev build really good gloves, and they always have done. These are no exception. I have no issues with these whatsoever. It's very, very light. It's held up well. It sort of holds onto your hand very well, so you've got good stability with your puck control. They've made the sidewall a bit stiffer from the L20.2, which I like as well. And this here is the demonstration of how you do curved finger protection with these there. Nice and stable, stuck to the sidewall. Not like some of the other brands that I've reviewed in the last couple of years where that's very, very floppy and gets in the way. This is how you do it, and other brands should really take notice on how to add this padding onto the side of the sidewall there. So blocker, outstanding, no problems. As we move on to the catcher, similar story. Levev build the best catchers in the business, in my opinion, and this is no different. It's exactly the same as the L20.2 was, which I actually loved. It was my favorite glove, and this is just an extension of the same glove. There's no differences in the specs or designs. We have the sort of impact protection in the palm there, which to me is a bit bouncy, but that's just more hand-eye coordination on my part than anything. I should be catching it in the pocket. But my only negative, it's not really a negative, it's just a more of a tribute to the build quality, is it takes a hell of a long time to break these gloves in. I've had these 6 months, and testing them sort of 9-10 times. It's only the last couple of times I really felt into a session that it properly broken in. I was getting good mobility, and that's just with a game ready palm. That's not with a pro palm or practice palm or any of the thicker materials there. It's just